Well, this is some pretty good timing for a fantasy football show. Welcome, everybody, to Fantasy Football Today, presented by BetMGM. Make it legendary. And, between now and 2 o'clock, we might have more big breaking news, headline trades. Right now, we have a few to break down. So we'll do that. We'll also talk about the waiver wire, which has actually changed quite a bit with Parker Washington and Torrey Horton. Maybe you don't want to make them your top priorities this week. We'll get into that. Hello, Dave and Jamie. Wow, this is fun, huh?
Yeah, it's always exciting when we get news right before the show starts, and hopefully, like you said, we get more before it ends. So let's see if maybe we get Breece Hall on the move and Tony Pollard and some of these other guys that we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks.
I wonder if there's a major domino effect. Remember, it's not like the trade deadline is right now until 2. They've got till 4 Eastern. But this huge move by the Colts could make some other teams in the AFC specifically kind of get off the pot, so to speak, and make a move to try and help their team.
So the two offensive trades that we had just in recent minutes, Jakobi Meyers going to the Jaguars, that was actually about an hour ago, for a 4th and a 6th round pick, and Rashid Shaheed going to the Seahawks. So he gets a major upgrade in a passing game there, but obviously has to deal with the JSN. But look at those two trades there. You get Myers going to the Jaguars. You've got Shaheed going to the Seahawks. Jamie, who's the biggest fantasy winner in these transactions?
Oh, that's a great question. I guess you'd probably say Chris Olave. We saw last week that he was struggling a little bit with Shaheed taking some targets and maybe being the guy that Tyler Shuck was going to lean on, and now Olave goes clearly back to being the number one guy for the Saints. Trey Tucker, obviously going to benefit with the Raiders. I don't like the Shaheed move personally. I think it crushes Torrey Horton and what he could have become, especially as a young receiver on the rise. And he goes to a team that we know, for the most part, has not thrown the ball very much. And JSN is still going to dominate targets. You're still going to have Cooper Kupp taking some opportunities. Horton will get a couple of opportunities, some chances. So I think he's one of the biggest losers. And you say only 2 offensive trades. Let's not forget, A.D. Mitchell was part of the Colts trade going to the Jets. He now gets the opportunity to automatically become their second best wide receiver. When you look at what this team looks like opposite Garrett Wilson, and if Wilson doesn't come back, this is the chance for him to take off. So I think in deeper leagues, you obviously want to take a look at him as well. But overall, biggest winner, I think you got to look at Chris Olave.
I think Olave is a big winner. I think Jakobi Meyers is a big winner because he could go right to Jacksonville and line up anywhere in that offense and start to garner some targets. We know that Travis Hunter's out for a while. We don't know how long, if at all, Brian Thomas Jr. is going to miss time at him. But it's not like Brian Thomas Jr. was setting the world on fire anyway. There's a good opportunity here for Jakobi Meyers to see 7+ targets per game. Usually when he's done that over the course of his career, usually when he's happy, he gets good numbers, and fantasy managers can use him as a number 3 receiver. I think Trevor Lawrence can lean on him in all sorts of ways, but certainly on short and intermediate throws. So I think that he's a decent winner. Jamie talked about Trey Tucker. There's another name, Jamie, I'm surprised you didn't mention him, but Jack Besh and also Dante Thornton, the rookie wide receivers that the Raiders drafted. I think Trey Tucker is going to be the most interesting one of those 3. But now we're going to see what this offense looks like as they take a step toward the future. They see what they've got in Thornton, who's a fast and long-armed outside receiver. Jack Besh, who's a big guy who works out of the slot, really could be impactful there. These are also wide receivers in deeper leagues that fantasy managers could take a look at.
If you talk about the waiver wire, and let's say Jakobi Meyers and Trey Tucker and Parker Washington and Rashid Shaheed were all available. I can't put Torrey Horton on this list now.
Okay.
But it's the 2 guys in Jacksonville, Myers and Parker Washington. It's Rashid Shaheed. And who was the other one I said? My head's spinning here.
Trey Tucker is who you said.
Trey Tucker. Thank you. How would you rank those 4?
For this week, it would be Washington 1, Myers 2, Tucker 3, Shaheed 4.
But if it's for rest of season, Washington would move to the bottom of that list. Myers would be at the top. I think I would chance it on Tucker over Shaheed. I agree with Jamie. I'm very nervous about what Rashid Shaheed does moving to an offense like Seattle, which is going to be able to play with a lead in a lot of their games. They'll run the ball a lot more. They'll throw a lot less. So I think I would go rest of season, Myers 1, Tucker 2, Shaheed 3, Parker Washington 4.
The wild card in all of this is Brian Thomas Jr. If he's going to miss significant amount of time, and it could be a high ankle sprain, then Meyers and Washington both benefit, because we know Hunter's not back for at least 3 more games, and who knows what the state of their team is. Do they rush him back? Do they take their time? We don't know how bad this knee injury was, non-contact in practice. In the case of Brian Thomas maybe missing significant time, then I think both Meyers and Washington have a chance to be successful. And again, we see these trades. I agree with Dave. Like, there's going to be an opportunity here for Jakobi Meyers, but Parker Washington's a guy that we talked about this on our podcast on Tuesday morning, that he's been getting a lot of targets with these guys healthy. This is a guy that Trevor Lawrence has been leaning on. This is a guy that I think Liam Cohen likes. I don't think there's a huge ceiling for Parker Washington, but I don't know if he's just going to go away because Jakobi Meyers is there. So it's a great move for them to get some help in the short term, maybe the long term, depending on how long these injuries are. And let's not forget, De'Ami Brown's also in the concussion protocol. So they needed help. And, for a team that's trying to get into the playoffs and certainly has the ability to do so, they're trying to stabilize that position, because we just don't know the volatility of how it could be with Thomas and with Hunter with their injuries.
Yeah, Jakobi Meyers had been a top 30 wide receiver per game for 3 straight seasons. Right now, he's not even in the top 50. He hasn't caught a touchdown, but it's kind of interesting to compare his 17-game pace with Brian Thomas Jr.'s. Jakobi Meyers is on pace for 80 catches, BTJ for 64. Jakobi Meyers, 855 yards, BTJ 893. BTJ on pace for 2 touchdowns, Meyers 0. And Brian Thomas Jr. on pace for 128 targets, Meyers 119. We haven't gotten good production.
This shows you how bad Brian Thomas has been.
Right, exactly.
I know. Another name here, guys, is Juwan Johnson. He's a guy who was kind of at the bottom of the waiver wire list at tight end, which was really good, but he probably moves past I'm just thinking about Jamie's waiver wire list, but he probably moves past Mason Taylor. Well, I don't know. It's not like A.D. Mitchell has done a lot, but this is obviously a boost for him, isn't it? Because this team, they don't throw successfully, but they throw a lot. I'll get you the number here. 35 pass attempts per game for New Orleans. Makes Juwan Johnson pretty interesting, Jamie.
It absolutely does, and just shows you another player at this position that's going to, I think, help fantasy managers. So when you're looking at it and you're saying, okay, how much do I need to spend on a Harold Fannin or a Colston Loveland? Maybe I just let it go, not spend a lot of fab, and I pivot to a Juwan Johnson or a Luke Musgrave, one of these guys that are going to be in some prominent situations on teams where we've seen a lot of success from the tight end spot. So I agree with you. Last week was the first time Juwan Johnson scored double digits in PPR without at least 7 targets. He scored a touchdown, so keep that in mind, but it was the first touchdown from Tyler Shuck in his start. So there's a lot to like about Juwan Johnson, but where's the ceiling lie? Is he going to be a 10, 11 PPR point per game guy, or can he get north of that now that Rashid Shaheed is gone? I think you look at Devon Vele, somebody else that's going to be a winner here. Somebody who could make some plays for the Saints as they pivot to, more of their youth movement. But I think we hopefully get back to what we were getting the beginning part of the season, which was just a boatload of targets for Chris Olave. And when he's had those opportunities, he's been successful.
That's if they keep Chris Olave.
Yep, good point.
True. If everything stands as is, would you rather have Juwan Johnson over the Browns tight ends, or would you still prefer the Browns tight ends?
You'd rather have the Browns tight ends. There's certainly going to be more targets there week to week, and certainly more upside there from week to week. And Juwan Johnson's been good, double-digit PPR points 3 straight games, but I think it's 11 PPR points in 3 of Fannin's last 4, and 13-plus PPR points in 2 of David Njoku's past 3.
All right, last question on this for now that I can think of. Any major boost or minor boost for Sam Darnold and or Trevor Lawrence?
Darnold for sure. I mean, he just got another incredible player, that, or a good player. I don't want to give too much credit to Rashid Shaheed, but a good player that's familiar with Clint Kubiak. They were together in New Orleans last season, so I'm sure that has to do with why they targeted Shaheed and got him on this roster. But now you can line up with Shaheed, Horton, JSN, still throw Cooper Kupp in there. There's just a lot of weapons, a lot of options for Sam Darnold. So for a guy that's put himself in the MVP conversation, for a team that's clearly headed toward the playoffs and may win that division, there's a lot to love about what Sam Darnold looks like right now. And, Dave said this before, which I think they want to do. They want to get the run game going. The run game sucks. And so you're just saying, okay, now we may just have to go out and be a very pass-heavy, pass-dominant team, which would help Shaheed and obviously help everybody else. Right. But if they stay in that low 30 pass attempt range, which is kind of where they've lived all season, it really doesn't say, okay, Shaheed's going to benefit from this move. Like, I would have preferred to see him go to even someplace maybe like Pittsburgh, where there was opportunities for 6+ targets a game. That's what Calvin Austin's got the last 2 weeks. If he went to Buffalo, could be the guy that we thought Keon Coleman could potentially be, as that lead outside receiver. So this doesn't feel like this is a big win for Shaheed. It might be, but they would have to sort of adjust their offensive philosophy a little bit and maybe just say, okay, Kupp, who knows how long this hamstring heel injury is going to linger for him. Torrey Horton, we like you, but we just don't love you yet as a rookie. And Shaheed steps in, and if he can get 6+ targets, he'll be okay. I just don't see it happening on a consistent basis.
Yeah, you know what? I think it would have to be made up for in touchdowns because the targets probably won't be there consistently. New Orleans 35 pass attempts per game, Seattle 27.5, but Seattle's thrown 16 touchdowns and New Orleans has thrown 9. So maybe Shaheed can capitalize on that. All right, you know what? Before we go to break, because when we come back, we're going to kind of combine quarterbacks and we're going to actually combine quarterbacks and running back waiver wire.
It's a week to do it.
Yeah, right. I thought it was right. They were nice to have a lousy quarterback and running back waiver wire week when we're going to have all this breaking news. Let's redo your top 3 because your top 3 waiver wire priorities originally included Parker Washington and not Torrey Horton. But Washington was number 1, I think. So if we were going to do it again, Dave, I'll start with you on this. I'm filibustering here to give you time to think about it. Let me know when you're ready. Are you ready?
I'm good.
Oh, okay. I thought you had something to say, like you just saw something across the wire. Okay. I'm still going to say, I'm still going to go with Fannin, Njoku, and Loveland.
Okay. Jamie?
Fannin and Loveland were on the list already. I'm still going to go Parker Washington. I think just for 1 week, he's going to be a guy that Trevor Lawrence leans on. Again, I don't expect Brian Thomas to play this week. We know Travis Hunter not going to play this week. It's going to be a short week for Jakobi Meyers till he gets to Jacksonville and gets acclimated and learns the system. So he'll have an opportunity to make some plays. Again, Dammy Brown in the concussion protocol as well. So I think for 1 week, when we're looking at this, Parker Washington could still be a number 3 fantasy receiver.
But if Jakobi Meyers is out there on your waiver wire, put him at the top.
Yeah, same with Trey Tucker. Any of these guys that are going to, sort of benefit, you want to take a look at those guys as well.
I might take the tight ends over Tucker.
I would take Tucker over Myers.
I would take Tucker over Myers, too.
You would? Okay. Yeah.
All right. I mean, if you told me that Brian Thomas Jr. was going on IR or something, that might change things. But let's say it's a 1 to 2 week absence for Brian Thomas Jr., something like that.
Maybe no week. He may play this week.
Right. There's a chance
or 0 week absence. What'd you say?
There's a chance that Brian Thomas Jr. plays this week. My argument is that we've seen enough of Trey Tucker to know that he's very boomer bust to begin with. I think we'll get more consistency out of Jakobi Meyers in Jacksonville.
Interesting. All right. Remember, Brenton Strange is going to be back fairly soon for Jacksonville, too. So that's another knock against Jakobi Meyers. We got a lot to sort out, and maybe we have more trades. Stay tuned. But when we come back, we'll talk about quarterbacks and running backs on the waiver wire after this.